Top 10 Disgusting and Unexpected Medical Treatments. Welcome back to Creepshow, where we delve into the dark and bizarre corners of history and science. Today, we're exploring the top 10 most disgusting and unexpected medical treatments from history. From sympathetic magic and brain pâté to corpse concoctions and urine therapy, medicine was once a terrifying and stomach-churning affair. Get ready to be shocked and intrigued by the bizarre practices that were once considered cures. But first, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you never miss a chilling episode of Creepshow. Let's dive into the macabre world of historical medicine. Even before the introduction of the COVID-19 virus, the image of contemporary medicine in wealthy countries has been one of clinical brilliance and merciless cleanliness for a considerable amount of time. Nevertheless, for the majority of human history, medicine was frequently unprocessed, sloppy, and downright revolting. Patients rarely exhibited a squeamish reaction in situations where diseases such as cholera, smallpox, and plague were the rule rather than the exception. Nature was always attempting to take your life, and the response of both medical professionals and patients was to make an effort to win nature over to their cause. Moreover, 300 or 400 years ago, what would subsequently be considered to be a form of popular magic was frequently supported by some of the most educated people in Europe. 10th, the salve for wounds. The use of an ointment that was applied not to the wound itself but rather to the implement that had caused the wound was one of the most peculiar therapies that were available during the early modern era. In the 17th century, individuals such as Walter Raleigh and Kenelm Digby, who were considered to be a significant proto-scientists, campaigned for this particular sort of sympathetic magic. It was proposed by the prominent Belgian chemist Jean-Baptiste van Helmont that the salve be prepared using the moss of an unburied cranium, the fat of man each 2 ounces, mummy, human blood each half an ounce, as well as oil of linseed and turpentine, each 1 ounce. One of the variations that Francis Bacon described required the fat of 2 bears killed in the act of generation. Indeed, in all seriousness, you not only had to sneak up on 2 bears that were in love with each other, but you also had to determine, based on their ursine growlings and swoonings, the precise moment when the joint orgasm, which was thought to be necessary to conception at the time, was taking place. Next, you should shoot them. In certain instances, the wound salvage may have been successful. This is due to the fact that the surgeons did not contact the patient, which would have allowed them to spread germs and potentially lethal infections to the wound. 9. The Cerebral Paté. John French, a scientist who lived in the 17th century and was friendly with Robert Boyle, generally regarded as the father of chemistry, was the one who recommended this treatment for epilepsy. It is recommended that the practitioner bruise these in a stone mortar until they become a kind of pap, which means that they should take the brains of a young man who has died a violent death, along with the membranes, arteries, veins, nerves, and all the pith of the back. You should next pour as much of the spirit of wine as will cover it 3 or 4 fingers' breadth over this cerebral pâté. Then transfer the entire mixture into a huge glass and then wait for it to digest half a year in horse dung before distilling it. French had a strong interest in anatomy, and the Savoy Hospital where he worked was among the places where dissections were performed. As a result, he would have had minimal difficulty acquiring fresh human heads and other components of a similar nature. Tony Robinson and I were given the challenging assignment of preparing French's medicine for television in the year 2011, and we used pigs that were allowed to roam freely. We gained a great deal of knowledge. I had the impression that it was something similar to cerebral pâté, but in reality, it was much more similar to soup. In contrast, we did not spend half a year living in horse excrement. Homunculus, number 8. The following recipe was included in the 1650 edition of A New Light of Alchemy text. Let the sperm of a man be putrefied in a gourd glass, sealed up with the highest degree of putrefaction in horse dung, for the space of 40 days, or for as long as it takes until it begins to be alive, move, and stir, which can be easily observed, the instructions said. It will be something that resembles a man after this time, but it will be translucent and it will not have a body. Now, after this, if it is nurtured and fed with the arcanum of man's blood on a daily basis with caution, and if it is kept in a continuous, equal heat of horse dung for a period of 40 weeks, then it will develop into a genuine and living newborn. Paracelsus, a prominent figure in the field of medicine during the early 16th century, expressed his opinion by stating, "This is what we refer to as homunculus, or artificial man. And after that, it is to be raised with the same level of care and attention as any other infant, until it reaches the years of maturity when it is able to comprehend things." Despite the fact that Paracelsus passed away in 1541, it appears that some of the most adventurous scientists of the 17th century took the homunculus seriously. This is evidenced by the fact that their unofficial theme tune should have been the song "Break On Through to the Other Side" by the Doors. Skull Smoothie, number 7. During the 1660s, a physician from England suggested that patients suffering from apoplexy consume a chocolate concoction that was also high in calcium level. The powder of the root of the male peony, which was combined with human skull, ambergris, and musk, was included in the combination. To this, one should add 1 pound of the kernels of the cocoa nuts, as well as whatever amount of sugar will be sufficient. Then, of this, make chocolate by taking half an ounce or 6 drachms every morning in a draught of the decoction of sage or of the flowers of peony. Willis, the physician in question, was the one in question. In his lifetime, he accomplished the feat of becoming the wealthiest physician in all of England by purchasing the 3,000-acre rural estate that belonged to the Duke of Buckinghamshire. He is today renowned as the father of neuroscience. By this point in time, medical professionals had been prescribing chocolate with great enthusiasm to patients who were able to buy this particular novelty for several decades. Because it would make them fat and comely, it was advised to women in particular. This was the reason for the recommendation. 6. Treatment combining chicken and pigeons. Even though there were a great number of creative and ineffective treatments for plague, chicken therapy stood out as one of the most noteworthy. You removed feathers off a living chicken and then held the bare section of the chicken to your plague sore until the animal passed away, most likely as a result of shock. Following that, you utilized a second live bird and potentially even a third until you achieved a bird that was able to survive. The fact that this bird was able to save you was evidence that the spirits of the plague had been completely extracted from you. Moreover, pigeons were rather popular. By the time one of Webster's characters in The Duchess of Malfi made the statement, "I would sooner eat a dead pigeon, taken from the soles of the feet of one sick of the plague, than kiss one of you fasting," the audience would have understood what he was referring to. The comprehensive reasoning behind this was backed up by a number of the most eminent medical professionals of the time. When John Donne became gravely ill in 1623, he ordered the king's own physicians to visit him on his sick bed. Additionally, he had dead pigeons placed above his head in order to collect any harmful vapors that may have been present. According to Christopher Irvine, a royal surgeon and the brother of a baronet in the year 1656, he made the statement that the arse of a hen plucked bare and applied to the biting of a viper freeth the body from venom in the body. A few of these pigeon remedies were utilized in the practice of conventional medicine during the entirety of the 19th century. 5. The divine water. This so-called divine water would have appeared to be rather appealing. If, however, you are ever presented with any of this enticing-sounding beverage, you should keep in mind that a Paracelsian chemist would have prepared it by taking a whole carcass with the bone, flesh, and bowels of one killed by a violent death, and chopping it up into very small pieces, then mashing it up until the entire pulverized mass was indistinguishable from the original. To our relief, it appears that just a small percentage of patients actually consumed aqua divina. After that, the corpse pâté was distilled into a liquid, and it was used to remove sickness from a patient by combining some of the patient's blood with the pâté. Johann Schroeder, a prominent German chemist, was acknowledged as one of the most vocal proponents of this method. In spite of the fact that Schroeder passed away in 1664, an Irish priest named John Keogh continued to strongly endorse his treatments in the year 1739. Not only did Keogh's patients find solace in his religious beliefs, but they also found solace in the fact that he was married to a relative of the Duchess of Marlborough. Poison, number 4. In addition to the unfathomable number of medications that were created from human corpses, there were also a number of manuals that were devoted to the process of extracting fantastic poisons from human bodies. To add insult to injury, the bodies in question were frequently ones that were still alive. The story of a red-headed sailor who was kidnapped in North Africa and later discovered hanging upside down, with his back broken, his face and throat bloated, was included in one of the accounts that were written in the year 1638. His mouth was allegedly stuffed with vipers, and after that he was hung up and exposed unto the hot sun, with a silver basin under his mouth. This is according to the traditional version of events. The liquid that was brought to this location created a kind of poison that was so lethal that it did certainly kill wherever it touched. There was also a myth that told of a cardinal who used his mistress to create poison. This was an important factor in the day-to-day activities of a busy Catholic priest in early modern Italy. In order to fulfill his priestly responsibilities, he first buried her up to her waist in a secret courtyard. After that, he put vipers to her breasts, which allowed him to extract a wonderful poison from her breasts. 3. Patients, are you? I am enraged by them. Leonardo Fioravanti, an Italian physician, was working in Africa in the year 1580 when a Spanish gentleman named Andreas Gutierro started arguing with a soldier. Upon observing Gutierro draw his weapon, the soldier swiftly delivered a blow with his own sword, striking Gutierro with his left hand, thereby causing him to lose his nose. Fioravanti picked it up after it, fell down in the sand, and then proceeded to wash away the sand with his balsamo artificiato before stitching it back on and finishing it off with his balsamo artificiato. The nose was discovered to be fast conglutinated after being bound up for 8 days, and Gutierro made a full recovery while he was receiving treatment. Urine was probably safer than the type of water that is typically available since it is sterile when it is expelled from the body. The chemical urea is still utilized in contemporary medicine for the purpose of providing treatments for ulcers and infected wounds, as Mary Bath correctly points out. During the reign of Henry VIII, the surgeon Thomas Vicary, who passed away in 1561, employed urine to treat wounds. On the other hand, our Restoration physician Thomas Willis would recommend that some of his patients drink their own urine. 2. Arm for borrowing. During the year 1597, the Italian surgeon Gaspar Tagliacozzi provided a description of the method that he utilized in order to restore a nose that had been destroyed or otherwise absent. It was necessary to cut a skin flap from the patient's own arm and then suture it onto the nose that was either absent or injured. While it was possible to remove the stitches after a week, the patient was required to have their nose splinted against the arm for a period of up to 3 weeks. If you think that this is less than ideal, just try to picture yourself having your nose splinted against the arm of another person for a period of 3 weeks. According to the legend, Tagliacozzi was the one who handled a case in which an Italian nobleman bribed his servant to contribute a portion of his arm for the purpose of obtaining a new nose for the master. Following these fascinating 3 weeks spent as Siamese twins, bathroom break anyone, the servant was granted full freedom and relocated to Naples, while the nobleman continued to reside in Bologna. There was a clear indication that the operation was successful. As time went on, however, the nose started to decay. How come? Apparently this was due to the fact that the servant had passed away, and the nose continued to have a secret sympathy with the body that it was attached to. After his death, Tagliacozzi's body was excavated and removed from hallowed ground. This was not done by the superstitious masses, but rather by the holy and humble Catholic Church itself. Tagliacozzi was considered sacrilegious for his efforts to improve upon the work that God had done. 1. Work on the stone by cutting it. After Nicholas Byfield, a Puritan pastor, passed away in 1622, an autopsy was performed on his body, and the results revealed that he had a bladder stone that weighed 33 ounces. This is comparable to the weight of a large red cabbage. A piece of an object that was as big as a tennis ball was something that Samuel Pepys saved as a keepsake after he was successfully cut for the stone on March 26, 1658. At the time of the month of May in the year 1669, it appears that the brother of fellow diarist John Evelyn had been suffering from a bladder stone for some time. Due to the fact that he was opposed to the concept of undergoing surgery, Evelyn brought Pepys along in an effort to convince the brother who was suffering from the condition. The fact that Evelyn did not tell his brother about the lithotomies that he had witnessed in a hospital in Paris in the year 1650 is something that we can easily envision. There was a person who was 40 years old and had a stone removed from him that was larger than a turkey's egg. The procedure was carried out as follows. The sick individual was stripped down to his shirt, and his arms and thighs were bound to a high chair. 2 men were holding his shoulders down tightly. The surgeon then made an incision through the scrotum that was approximately 1 inch in length. Using another instrument that was similar to the neck of a crane, he pulled the stone out of the patient with incredible torture. Another patient was observed by Evelyn to be displaying a great deal of cheerfulness and going through the operation with extraordinary patience and expressing great joy when he saw the stone was drawn. This individual was a child, aged between 8 and 9 years old at the time. That's it for today's unsettling journey through the annals of medical history. We hope you found these gruesome treatments as fascinating and horrifying as we did. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends who love all things creepy and bizarre. Don't forget to subscribe to Creepshow and hit the bell icon to stay updated on our latest content. What do you think was the most shocking treatment on our list? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay creepy, and keep exploring the dark side of history. Thanks for watching Creepshow.